I have a confession to make. For more than 20 years, I've been helping some of the world's largest companies part you from your money. I've made millions of people spend more than they intended and buy stuff they don't really need using sneaky brain hacks my team and I researched and perfected in thousands of tests. Imagine you want to buy a cell phone plan and you see this expensive premium plan, typically on the right-hand side of the product portfolio. Have you ever wondered who buys these crazy plans? Well, actually, very few people do. Because the sole purpose of this premium plan is to make all the other plans look more affordable to you. This sneaky little nudge is called the anchor effect in behavioral economics. And I've created so many anchors in my career, they should make me an honorary captain by now. In fact, it was in this very building that I tried to lure some of you to the dark side in recruiting events. And then, after 25 years, it finally dawned on me, what if I used nudges like this magic of behavioral economics to do good, to help save the world? And as I applied my research methodology to the defining challenge of our time, the climate crisis, I stumbled upon 3 shocking insights. First, we have no clue what works. Second, if we take action, we're likely doing the wrong thing. And third, most importantly, this is surprisingly hard to change. How did I get there? Let me take you on my journey. Initially, I wanted to understand how I could reduce my own CO2 footprint. So I searched the web and did all sorts of research and found confusing and sometimes disturbing sources. For example, I found this list here. This is from a peer-reviewed journal where the #1 driver is have one fewer child. Thing is, I already have 2 children, and it is surprisingly difficult to get rid of them and illegal. So I was still clueless on what I should do, right? Most of these lists have very few numbers. Well, actually, most of them don't have numbers at all. So I was still clueless on what I should do. And then I wondered, what if everybody else is just as clueless as I am? Well, let me ask you guys, who thinks plastic bags are bad for the climate? Raise your hand. Wow, okay. Who thinks flying to Mallorca is worse for the climate? Raise your hand. Interesting. So I surveyed 8,500 people in 4 countries, and to keep things simple, I gave them a list of 7 actions to choose from. Actions with a high impact, like energy efficient heating and cooling, and actions with a low impact, like buying local and seasonal groceries. And this list was randomized for each respondent. Can you guess what made it to the top of the list? Not only in the US, but also in Germany, France, and the UK? No more plastic bags. Now, to put this in perspective, I would need to save plastic bags for more than 20 years to have the same effect as 1 round trip less to Mallorca. Now, don't get me wrong. No more plastic bags is a noble cause, but it will not save the climate. So I guess we're pretty clueless when it comes to the top of the list. But what about the other items you saw on the list? Well, it's kind of a mixed bag, and it reflects local sensitivities. For example, the Americans they, and rightly so, think that fuel-efficient driving has a big impact. I guess that comes naturally to you if you sit in a gas-guzzling SUV all day. But they completely miss out on the effect of flying less. Whereas the French, they think that buying local and seasonal grocery has a big impact, which it doesn't. But they completely miss out on the impact of eating less meat. Well, go figure. Now, in case you were wondering, just like I was, for people like us, the 4 biggest ticket actions are fly less, energy-efficient heating and cooling, green electricity, and eat less meat. I wanted to understand how we could be off on the impact of some of these actions. And I picked eat less meat as a deep dive. So I wondered, is it that we lie to ourselves on how much meat we eat, or that we really don't know, or both? So I surveyed 3,000 people in the US and in Germany, and I gave them this simple list to choose from. How much meat do you personally eat on average per day? Is it more like, turkey burger, or like a slice of turkey breast, and so on? Now, before we get to the survey results, just so you know the facts, which are stunning. Over the course of 10 years, an average German consumes 117 chicken, 4.5 entire pigs, and half a cow. And now come the survey results. This is how much we think we eat. So we eat 80% more than we think we eat. In the US, close to 50% more than we think we eat. So we massively underestimate the amount of meat we eat. And then I wondered, so obviously we lie to ourselves, but what if I ask you guys what the average citizen consumes in terms of meat consumption? Would you still underestimate it? So I ran another survey with 1,500 people, and the answer is yes. We still underestimate it, but not as much. So we not only lie to ourselves, we really don't seem to know. And it is this combination that is a tough nut to crack. What this is all about is, what actions do we take against climate change? Not only the gaps in what we know, but the actions that we take. So let me ask you, what do you do against climate change? No worries, I'm not putting you on the spot, because how likely is it that you're going to give us a truthful answer if I put you on a spot like this? But if I ask you, what will your friends do against climate change? That's more likely to get us to the truth, right? So I asked another 1,000 people what their friends will do against climate change. You can relax now. And I gave them the same list, randomized and all. Can you guess by now what made it to the top of the list? Yes, no more plastic bags. But there's good news. 98% of people said their friends would do at least something. The bad news is, on average, people selected 1.6 actions. That's it. And now you probably understand better why I am so upset about the plastic bag thingy. Because as of today, we're only doing 1 or 2 things to fight climate change, and that thing most likely will not help save the climate. Unless, you were hoping for that, right? Unless we get some help. Behavioral economics to the rescue. All we need is the right kind of nudge. But what is the right kind of nudge? Well, think of the graphic warning labels on packs of cigarettes. I mean, these days when you buy cigarettes, it's like you buy a piece of rotten lung, right? It's pretty disgusting. Studies show that these labels actually work, at least a bit. That's what we call an informational nudge. I thought, well, if that works, why don't we start by improving the lists I mentioned earlier that give advice on personal climate action? So I created a new list with informational nudges a management consultant like myself would dream of. Proper bar charts, quantified CO2 impact, a ranking. And now I proudly present my list. I ran a series of tests with more than 5,000 people to determine which of these individual nudges I built in there had the biggest effect. So is it the ranking? Is it the quantification? Is it the bar charts? Yada, yada, yada. None of them had any effect. None. What an embarrassment. Guys, I really am an expert on these types of nudges, and I was completely off. And I spoke to scientists who do this for a living and get paid for it. And they were off as well. So one key takeaway here is, when it comes to the impact of new nudges, experts have no clue. So we have to keep on testing. We have to keep on experimenting. The other key takeaway is that more information does not seem to help. And then I wondered, Frank, you've been thinking about this completely the wrong way. If information does not matter to us, we as the advisors, we need to take people by the hand. What does this mean in the context of personal climate action? Let me illustrate this with 2 other surveys that I did. In this first one, I presented respondents with 3 high-impact actions, and I get a fairly decent take rate. And then in a second survey, I added plastic bags to the list. Now, it's at the bottom of the list, and it clearly says that the impact is very small. But people jump to it. Plastic bags sucks up everything else. So there's one obvious implication here. Keep plastic bags off those lists. In other words, if you're out there to give advice on what people should do to fight climate change, curate your advice. Remember that people will only take 1 or 2 actions, so make it count. The bigger question is, if people take the right action, will that be enough? Sadly, no. Because even the most effective action, say for a German, it is energy efficient heating and cooling, reduces your CO2 footprint by less than 10%. So as of today, we have not yet found the holy grail to nudge us out of the climate crisis. So why am I not totally depressed? Well, if there's one thing I learned working for the dark side of nudging, is to keep looking for impact in the most unlikely places. So let's revel in our ignorance. Let's keep on testing. So my work has shown that informational nudges really don't move the needle. But imagine you go to a cafeteria. Maybe they have it in your cafeteria as well. And you see that the salad is presented to you at eye level, and they hide away the schnitzel in a faraway corner of the shelf. Studies show that nudges like that, which directly impact your behavior, are 3 times more effective than informational nudges. That's very promising, right? And let's not forget, we need to focus on the silent majority, the people who are concerned about climate change, but may not yet have taken effective action. Depending on the country, that is roughly 50% of the population. That's where any effective nudge can really move the needle. Imagine on your commute to work, you pass by your neighbor and you see that she's got solar panels installed on her roof. Do you think this would increase the chance of you yourself getting solar panels installed? Well, yes, actually it does. A very recent, hugely sophisticated study proved and quantified this peer influence nudge effect. Personally, I think we would do almost anything to keep up with the Joneses, right? Now, the question is, how do you make this peer influence nudge truly scalable. One idea that I think is worth testing is to try to make effective climate-friendly behavior a new social norm. Imagine on the social network of your choice, if, Instagram, Telegram, whatever gram, you see more and more of your connections showing off what actions they take to fight climate change, using a simple and transparent reward system that is permanently visible, for example, in their profile frame. So let's say you pledge to go without flights for 6 months and to switch to green electricity. You get awarded the Climate Rising Star. You like the profile picture? I got some work done. Or let's say you have already switched to green electricity for 6 months, then you get awarded the Climate Starlet. Now, the highest level, the Climate Superstar, that's reserved for people who take action on 3 of the 4 biggest levers. Still remember them? Fly less, energy efficient heating, green electricity, eat less meat. Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook or Evan Spiegel of Snapchat, if you're listening to this talk, this is your chance to help us nut ourselves out of the climate crisis. I expect your call any minute now. And as a reward, I got this very special, free, limited edition, fully recyclable plastic bag